Happy to welcome my first guest this morning. Jay McDaniel is Executive Director of the Mississippi Gaming Commission. Always kind with his time. Jay, good morning.
Morning, Richard.
Appreciate you being with me. We got this report last week that there is a crackdown that is happening on illegal betting sites in the state of Mississippi. We know that, and it is a source of great frustration for some. For others, they agree with it, that online gaming is illegal in Mississippi. We've got a lot of gaming locations, but that there is a proliferation of these online betting sites that are available in Mississippi, and your office and others are saying that can't happen and it's not going to happen anymore.
Yeah, Richard, we're doing our best. This is no secret that the proliferation of these sites, it's just it's gotten bigger in the last few years as we have continued to not move on online sports betting. Specifically, the sports betting sites have been the real problem. I did this last year. I sent cease and desist letters to some last year. As we entered the legislative session this year, we talked to our partners in the legislature and said, look, you need to do one or two things, either legalize mobile sports betting or increase the penalties for the illegal operators so that we, put some fear in them. There was one bill in the Senate that did one bill in the House that did the other, and neither one passed. So we kind of sit here now, well, we've got to do something. And really the cease and desist, this round of letters I've sent, is really just kind of that first salvo to let them know, look, you can do this easy. We're letting them know they're illegal. You need to stop. And if they don't comply, we'll make it real easy. And so that's kind of where we are. And I mentioned that sports betting was the big one. What we've seen in the last year is an increase in not just the sports betting sites, but what you might have heard of as sweepstakes casinos or social casinos that advertise themselves as legal, and they trick the public into thinking this is legal. They'll even spoof legal sites. But then once you pay to play and you win a reward, it becomes illegal. So we are now attacking both those online sports as well as online casino sites.
All right, I'm going to reveal something about myself, and you can judge me as you wish. But on my phone, I have downloaded, what's the name of this app? Q-Block and Wooden Block. And they're kind of like Tetris games. But when you play the little free version of it, you have to wait for an ad to run in between like one round and the next round. And one of the things that I've seen advertised on there is like cash solitaire, where there are cash prizes for playing solitaire on an app on your phone. Does that fall into this illegal online gaming category?
Yeah, it's a tough question, Richard. I believe it does. My opinion is not the only opinion out there. Those games, they advertise themselves. Those are skill games. You're playing solitaire, so there's not an element of chance. So that's kind of their argument. But if we wanted to make a case against them, I think, you're still flipping cards. I mean, just like the blackjack table, you can have some skill, but there's still a chance element. So if you have to pay money and you can win a reward and there's an element of chance, yes, it is. Now, as far as a solitaire game, that's one that's lower on our list. But yeah, if we were to, it's kind of like on my level of targets, it would be way down there. But yeah, arguably those, if you're paying money with a chance to win money and there's an element of chance, it is an illegal site.
And by the way, I haven't gone through with the cash solitaire game, but it was just one of those things, though, that I was thinking. I'm like, okay, well, if you can't place a mobile sports bet or you can't use, I know the most common are DraftKings and FanDuel with those daily fantasy leagues. Those are not available. Then why would this be something that you could do? And it sounds like you're saying you really ultimately shouldn't or can't.
Yeah, and those kinds of games, you look at it, the things that we care about too are where's the state losing? We're losing tax revenue. Are we losing, people to, problem gambling that's not being taken care of? And you look at a risk assessment, someone playing solitaire, you would hope the risk of getting addicted and playing would be lower than like sports betting or playing a slot machine. Yeah. But, we don't know. There's some out there that say it's just as bad. You don't want people just dumping their money into this. And I don't get a lot of inquiries about that. So I kind of look at what are people complaining about. I've yet to get a call, someone say my kid dumped all their savings in a solitaire game. But I am getting calls about them doing it with sports betting. So that's kind of the way we look at it, is let's start with the big targets and go from there.
How effective have the cease and desist letters been?
Well, I'll tell you, the round we sent last week, we just sent 10. Louisiana, my counterpart in Louisiana sent 40 the same day I sent 10. I started with the ones we identified as the biggest problem. I had one reach out to me, one of the operators, Bet Whale. They run an online sportsbook and casino. They sent me a response, said, we are ceasing operations today. And that was the day after I sent it. So 1 out of 10 said we're stopped immediately. We checked, and I applaud them. I'm not going to applaud them for operating illegally. They may claim they didn't know, but at least they took it seriously. I'll name another big one, Bovada. This is the third. This was basically strike 3 for them. I have yet to hear anything from them. So I would, we got a 10% success rate so far. But like I said about making it real easy on them, when we didn't get that bill passed that escalated the penalties to felonies, which is one of my problems. The gambling penalties are misdemeanors. They're fines that they could write a check every day and never blink an eye. But we wanted to escalate it to stiffer penalties, and that bill didn't pass. But we do have a RICO statute, and that's what I decided. I talked to my attorney general, the attorney that works here. I said, well, let's develop a RICO case. I mean, that's got felony charges, and as long as gambling's an underlying act. And I think that Betwell, I think that scared them. I think that's why they stopped, because we had sent them a cease and desist last year and they did nothing, and now they did. And I just want these operators to know we're serious. We're building a case. We're not just looking at the operator. We're looking at the, who's the payment processor, who's doing the promoting for them. Because when you're looking at a RICO case, it's all the organizations involved. And at the end of the day, Richard, it's this agency was created to regulate gaming. 10% of my work in the past has been illegal gaming, because it's usually go into a bar and take the slot machines out of the back. You charge them with a misdemeanor and you move on. But with the online access and the mobile access, it is just, I think the numbers are going to surpass our brick and mortar gaming if we allow it to continue to go. So we have a product here we need to protect. We have operators that are just doing it despite our laws. We're not getting any tax revenue. The people out there have no consumer protections. So we're just trying to do our best to at least put a dent in the problem.
You know as well as I do that as people are in their cars this morning, or they're sitting on the back porch listening and they're drinking a cup of coffee, there are a lot of people that are going, so just make it legal. You and I have talked about this before. So many others have as well. And you mentioned it a second ago that obviously they haven't passed this in the State House here in Mississippi. But there's so many people that are going, what are we doing? Why not just legalize mobile sports betting, period? And I think we've looked at it in the past and said, okay, about half the operators in Mississippi are okay with that, and the other half don't want it to be the case. Well, in your mind, what's the holdup?
Yeah, I think you said it right, that we have these 26 operators. And I think it's a little bit, I think it is a majority. I think if you look at it, it's like 14-12 or 16-10 that are for or against. Okay. And I think that's the holdup, Richard, is just some do view it as if we legalize, and it's really just mobile sports. I don't think there's any appetite to do total iGaming across the state. There are a few states that do it, but I think we're just talking about mobile sports betting. And I think the holdup is just that there's enough that are against it. But my answer to that, I'm not going to sit here and tell an operator how to do business, but it's a very risk averse way to do business. And the days of saying, we're expanding gaming or this will increase gaming, what I'm sitting here telling them is it's already here. Like I said, these operators we're sending it to, they're operating here and they're not stopping. And this is a big issue. I don't know if you've kept up with this Kalshi, the Robinhood Kalshi, the prediction markets that's going on right now. There is a federal, there's a institution that Kalshi is offering what they call prediction markets. They're calling it, well, we just lost power here. I'm sorry about that. I hope you can still hear me. All right, they're operating under the CFTC, the Commodities Trading Commission, and they have been taking bets. You may have read about it on the Masters, March Madness. Nevada and New Jersey have filed suits to stop them, and they have pushed back and gotten an injunction to allow to operate. And they're operating here right now. We're kind of taking a wait-and-see approach. But my point is, right now, you've got this operation that's basically doing sports betting right now. And we really can't stop it until the federal courts make a decision on that. So, again, here's something that's already here. And I think it's sports betting. Most people think it's sports betting, and they're calling it something different. But that should just add to the argument that now we're competing with a federally backed product out there.
Yeah. Can you hang with me for a couple more minutes?
Yeah, absolutely.
Even in the dark. Jay McDaniel, he's the executive director of the Mississippi Gaming Commission. We're back with you with more right after this on SuperTalk Mississippi. Back with you on Mornings with Richard Cross on SuperTalk Mississippi. Jay McDaniel is my guest. He's executive director of the Mississippi Gaming Commission. Got a couple of minutes left, and I was digging around on this site that you were talking about before the break, Kalshi, and that's something that Scott Sands, who is a regular fill-in here, has talked about as well. They brand themselves as you were describing a second ago, a trading site, but you can trade on predicted outcomes, which feels like gambling. And you can do it in everything. It's not just sports betting. I mean, you can trade, using their terms, on whether or not a Fed decision is coming in July to maintain current rates or cut it by 25 basis points. You can trade on whether Joey Chestnut will win the hot dog eating contest on the 4th of July or someone else will, who the Democrat nominee will be in 2028. I mean, it's literally anything you want to, quote unquote, trade on, which is to say bet on.
Yep. Yeah, it is. And Richard, like I said, when you look at, okay, let me trade on whether the Thunder are going to beat the Pacers, that's the same thing that our casinos are doing. They're just not calling it trading. And the CFTC has authorized it. If you read into it, I mean, this has support of the Trump administration. So, like, I'm not about to fight. I'm going to wait and see what Nevada and New Jersey do. They currently have suits going. But you can do it right now. And while I think it's illegal, I mean, because it's pending, and one of them's in the Third Circuit Court of Appeals already, it's kind of one of those wait and see. But again, it's another competitor to our casinos that aren't paying any taxes in our state that people are going to realize, well, I can just do this.
Yeah. We got a couple of messages on the C Spire text line, and this is something that you and I, Jay, have talked about before. And it's that when you say online betting, online sports betting, most people associate that with the big properties, right? Either our brick and mortar properties or the daily fantasy big properties that we've talked about. But the fact is, people that had a guy, right, who had a bookie, and in the past either had to call him or visit him, and he's keeping it on a spiral-bound notebook, and it's this. That's not how they operate anymore either. Most of those have gone to online platforms. Is there a look into those, or do they kind of operate below the radar?
No, there's a look into those as well, because as I mentioned, we've always, if a bookie got big enough to get on the radar, or we got a complaint from a sheriff's department that they knew of a big bookie in town, I mean, we would go hit those guys from time to time, and usually it was just, hey, stop doing it, and they would move on. Now, like you say, a lot of those are using these online apps to kind of run their business, and they take a percentage. So as we go after these online operators, if we find a nexus with a individual, promoting it in the state, and those individuals could get dragged into it as well. My target is the big operation. You want to shut it down. But if it takes going after some local in order to get attention, that may happen. It's kind of, I'll just tell you right now, it's just ongoing investigation, and it's we're starting to see where servers are located, where people might be using this. So that's kind of why these cease and desist were a warning. Like, we don't want to have to get there, but whatever it takes to stop it. What really got a lot of people's attention, and ours as well, was when a few weeks ago, I don't know if you read the story, you go on Facebook and you say, hey, Penn National now has online gaming at Hollywood Casino. Click on the link, and it made it look like it was one of our casinos. And then you clicked on it, and it took you to this offshore site. Now we're getting to the point of just clear fraud, defrauding our consumers. We've got to shut. That's kind of target number one, is let's stop that. So again, it's not my desire to start, going through every county and shutting every book down when we've got these national operators making all the money.
There is this whole piece of this thing, and I understand that ultimately it lies with the Senate and the House of Representatives in Mississippi as to whether or not this is illegal or not. But this whole piece of it that's so disingenuous, where I can go to half the gas stations in the state of Mississippi and plop down $20 on a scratch off to try and win some money. I am betting on a chance to win, and yet I can't say, hey, I'm going to take Alabama minus 17 to win today.
Yeah, and it's interesting you brought up the lottery. You know, when we talk about these illegal sites, I mean, that's competition to the lottery as well. I mean, I'm fighting it to kind of protect our casinos, but, you know, there's only so much discretionary income to go around. And if people are betting on an illegal site, that's less money they may spend on a lottery ticket that goes to our state. So, yeah, I mean, if the state's going to choose to, you know, these are the items we want to allow people to wager on, we've got to consider how to protect those areas. But yeah, and Richard, I don't know if you've looked at Louisiana. They're talking about upping their tax revenue off sports betting, which is like $400 million a year. They're going to add to go to their NIL collective. I don't know if you saw there's a bill potentially do that. I mean, you want to get farther behind,
which is, I mean, that's like a whole nother set of complexities with the changing landscape and in revenue sharing and NIL and everything. It's certainly an interesting topic, Jay. I appreciate you shedding a little bit of light on it. We certainly have more that we can discuss in the future. I appreciate your time this morning.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you.
Jay McDaniel, Executive Director of the Mississippi Gaming Commission. Some things you can bet on, some things you can't bet on, but now you can trade instead of bet, which is kind of the same thing. Some might argue that the stock market is just a big casino also. Not saying it is. Some might make that argument.